After creating the consensus best skateboarding video game ever made, Neversoft released a sequel. A sequel which was promptly crowned the new greatest skateboarding video game ever made. So what would come next? If you're Neversoft and Activision, do you coast on the sales of your previous conquests? Do you ride off into the sunset as the undisputed king of the genre? At this time, the scene was starting to heat up. I mean, Konami were about to drop into the genre themselves with ESPN X Games Skateboarding, a game fronted by THPS mainstay Bob Burnquist. You know what? That's it. That's all it took.
Has Tony Hawk gone insane? Tricking off a fire truck, a cop car, and freeway traffic? It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, with 8 massive living levels that let you trick off of everything. Choose from 13 skaters, create a skater, a skate park, even play online.
What's Tony Hawk doing on the freeway?
Frontside nose grind.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, rated E to T.
Now, is that actually how it happened? Was the creation of ESPN X Games Skateboarding really the catalyst for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 going into development? No, this was always going to happen. But for real, how are you going to steal my Bob Burnquist? Today we dive into... I mean, come on, you know the drill by now. We're going to look at every kickflip, every McTwist, every half pipe, and every car crash. This is the history of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Part 3. Welcome to my world. Every video here on 616 Entertainment is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos and podcasts, and more. Pro Wrestling Tees has the merch. As always, thank you for watching. The tagline of "Welcome to my world" doesn't really mean anything when it comes to the game itself. It's just catchy. We're still tearing it up in a cacophony of skate parks and other crazy places, but there is one thing we know for sure. We weren't just playing on the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 anymore. The next generation had arrived. Is this Tony's world that he was welcoming us to? The next-gen video game systems? Maybe. I don't know. I do know that the PlayStation 1 version's levels are smaller. It still runs on the original engine. There are missing features in comparison to the newer versions, so on and so forth. This is actually the version I grew up with. I did not have a PlayStation 2 yet at time of release, so I had to make do with what I had. Did any of you own Tony Hawk 3 on the PS1? Or how about the N64, where this was the final game released on the console? Man, what a way to go out. When it comes down to it, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series, these are technically sports games, and thus far they were being released annually. With a franchise like Madden or FIFA, fans often complain that they were being forced to buy the same thing year after year, with only the tiniest of updates. They'd say players' stats increased or decreased, and rosters being updated are not worth $50 to now $70 every 12 months. So when it comes to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater being an annualized sports franchise, I think it's fair to put these games under that same sort of scrutiny. And fortunately for us, that argument falls apart immediately. We're not skating on the same levels we had last time with a brighter sun or denser streets. No. These stages are all brand new. From indoor parks like Skater Heaven to zanier settings like the airport or the cruise ship. This is not a Madden job. When it comes to the players, or skaters, the customization has been busted wide open. Your created skater can now be male or female. Our pros can be outfitted in any way we desire, really. Want to change the color of their standard gear? Go for it. Would you prefer to dress them like a complete goof? That's an option as well. Neversoft always had their finger on the pulse in regards to what fans of the series were looking for, and widening the window of customizability was them continuing to deliver on that promise. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 added the manual, an earth-shattering move that expanded our combo possibilities to heights once thought unreachable. Flip tricks, grinds, grab tricks, they could all be strung together in a fashion that put our skills to the test. This chain would last as long as we could stretch it, you know? The only thing we couldn't do was bring vert tricks into the fold. Someday, right? Well, with the release of Tony Hawk 3, that day was today. The revert would be the answer to our extreme sports prayers. Timing a tap of R2 or L2 on a big air landing would spin our skater around and open a window to chain into a manual. The manual was a game changer, and the revert had reinvented the wheel all over again. Suffice to say, this was anything but a Madden situation. Proof from over 20 years ago that not all annual sports franchises are forced into delivering only the most minor of upgrades. Fun fact, I played through my entire Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 career mode without using a single revert. And that's not because I don't like them or because I didn't need them. As a matter of fact, there are still a few sick scores that I haven't hit. I wasn't using reverts because I forgot they were in this game. I thought that was something that we got either in Tony Hawk 4 or Tony Hawk's Underground, and I was already through the last level by the time I remembered that that was something I could do. Whoops. Who did I choose for my career run this time out? How about Bam Margera? This was Bam's video game debut, and I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about this. I'll try to make it quick, and we'll dive further into the gameplay, I promise. When I was 10, 11 years old, the coolest show on TV for my friends and I was a little MTV series called Jackass. You might have heard of it. The show premiered in November of 2000, and instantly, the names Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Chris Pontius, Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, and all the rest were seared into our brains. We didn't just think they were funny. We didn't just think they were cool. We wanted to be them. There's a warning at the start of every episode that none of what we were about to see should be recreated at home. And I hate to break it to you, but we recreated a lot of what we saw on Jackass. Should we have done that? Absolutely not. We could have gotten seriously injured. But it is what it is. I wrestled in my backyard, too, despite what WWE told me. Don't bother calling the cops, it's too late. Anyway, I bring up Jackass to springboard into Viva La Bam and just be clear about the fact that Bam Margera was one of my idols growing up. The way he acted, the way he dressed, the stupid things he would say, I copied all of it. Every single little piece of Bam I could steal, I would. Some of it is embarrassing to admit, sure, but we all did this. Darby Allin is doing it right now.
Thankful for not going to the hospital. Final answer.
Chad N'Djamena, Africa.
I copied Jeff Hardy, too. I would paint my fingernails in middle school and draw on my arms like a fucking lunatic. I was crazy, because I was trying to be Jeff Hardy. And while I'm goofing on myself here for copying Bam in every way that I possibly could, it wasn't just his outfits that I thought were cool. Bam was very, very inspirational for me, creatively. Bam was a kid who came from nothing. A kid who would borrow his parents' camcorder and film himself and his friends skating and acting out little skits. Long story short, he turned those tapes into a series of VHS releases under the CKY banner. These bizarre, comedic collections of insanity would go on to sell over 1 million units on word of mouth alone. This was before YouTube, before any sort of social media platform. Fast forward to 2003 and Bam and the crew put out a feature-length movie called Haggard. Watching this guy do his thing, skating and acting and writing and editing and directing all of this stuff, both by himself and with his best friends, it made me want to do the same thing. It made me feel like, shit, maybe I could do the same thing. Now, this is the history of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, not the history of Bam Margera, so I will cut it there. But I just wanted to give Bam his flowers. He hasn't been in a great place for, man, over a decade now, which is very unfortunate, but this is a quick thank you for the entertainment and inspiration across some of my most formative years. And you introduced me to my favorite band of all time. But I promise to move into the game, so there will be no hymn talk here. Maybe another time. Career mode! I played as Bam Bam, and I took care of business. Right from the start with the Foundry, we can see how deeply silly this series was becoming. Knocking a foreman into what I hope is water is one of our first goals, and it's a fucking Rube Goldberg type situation that sends him over the edge. Yeah, seriously, if that's not water, if that's like a chemical or something, this dude is for sure dead. Side note really quick, you have no idea the pleasure I take in seeing a heartogram and the him logo in a video game. Oh man. From the heat of the Foundry, we head into the snowy skate parks of Canada, complete with rushing rapids and skyscraping pines. Our first competition takes place in Rio. It's a shame that Bob Burnquist isn't here. We finally made it to his home country and he's off in ESPN land. Man, I should cover ESPN X Games Skateboarding at some point, shouldn't I? Would you want to see that? Let me know. Suburbia is probably the most insane level in the whole game. And it's not because of the amount of creativity we're forced to use in order to hit the score challenges. It's because of the bizarre happenings contained within the level itself. We'll go into detail on these things later, don't worry. The airport is next, and though you might not feel it at first, this is, in some ways, a downhill level in disguise. Each escalator leads us down further and further into the cargo bay under the terminal itself. These thieves were not always pickpockets. Again, more on the weird stuff later. And competition number 2 takes place on Skater Island, a gorgeous indoor park with enough kickers, bowls, and rails to make your head spin. Los Angeles is wide out in the open, and the designers were out of control here with the goofiness. For whatever reason, grinding a certain set of rails will trigger an earthquake that demolishes a stretch of highway. One of our goals has us gaining access to the broken bridge and knocking a hanging car down from this ledge, which stops a high-speed chase that then evolves into a full-blown shootout with police. What the fuck is going on in this game? The third and final competition takes place in Tokyo, and holy shit, is this stage fantastic. Hit the loop, why not? It instantly grants a full special meter. The red neon coping across these bowls just does something for my brain. I don't know, I just love it. The amount of ledges, rails, and lips here on this stage make for a combo skater's dream. Tokyo's the final level, right? Wrong! You can't miss the cruise ship. Come on, are you kidding? This is another stage, 2 in a row now, where the edges are just so perfectly spaced that we can hop from spot to spot, stringing together a grind combo for the ages. And if you botch your combo, falling into the ocean is fun too. It's a no-lose situation. The levels spread across career mode here in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 are fantastic. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch, and I would rank these over the levels from Tony Hawk 2 without skipping a beat. You know what would be really cool though is if they included a few flashback levels, you know? Like a couple stages from the first game brought under the new engine with the updated PlayStation 2 graphics. Oh wait, they did do that. God damn it, this is amazing. Look, I know it's 2024 or 2025 at the time you're watching this video. The warehouse has now been remade a million times across several Tony Hawk games. But this was the first time it was given back to us, and I love it. But the warehouse wasn't alone. Burnside is also here, the second competition level from the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, complete with the eyeball bowl. And last but not least, it's Roswell. Our alien friend is still here behind the glass. He doesn't ask for our help anymore, and I choose to believe it's not because he's dead, it's because he's just chilling. We can all agree on that, right? Did you happen to notice I was playing as an extremely sexy devil woman in the warehouse? This is Demon S, one of the unlockable characters gracing the roster this time out. Who is Demon S? She's just Demon S, man. One of her moves is the Antichrist Air, which is one of the coolest parts about this game, second only to the presence of the heartagram. There are rumors that Demon S is a reference to a character from a comic book, but none of that has ever been substantiated. What's very easy to substantiate is that this is fucking Darth Maul! Holy shit! His special moves are fantastic. His board doesn't even have wheels on it, it just hovers, and I think the only way that we could one-up this is with like Wolverine or something. Hey, speak of the devil! Pop into the air and stab your claws right through the board. Why not? God damn. I'm a DC guy, but there's just no denying how cool Wolverine is, right? The PC port of Tony Hawk 3 even has the Doom guy as a playable character after entering a password. And what the hell, how about pro surfer Kelly Slater? He skates on a big-ass fucking surfboard. It doesn't make any sense, but who cares? Man, I've said it before, but these were the days. Weird-ass, totally unrelated hidden characters, you know? If we're going to talk about weirdness in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, we have to cover the Thin Man. But before we do that, we're going to do what we always do on the history of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. We are going to risk multiple copyright strikes in order to celebrate some of the iconic songs included on this game's soundtrack.
You're not the same, you've changed, I don't need you anyway.
It's worth the risk, every time. And hey, if I get demonetized, consider offsetting that demonetization by signing up over on Patreon or right here under a YouTube channel membership. If you appreciate my risks and my continued use of harsh language, hey man, sign up. Or don't. I don't know. I don't care what you do. Let's dive into some of this weird shit going on here in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. On the Skater Island level, grinding this tiny little flagpole pops a pirate message up on the screen and opens a door across the stage. A fucking pirate ship is revealed outside the park. A pirate ship which launches cannonballs that smash into Skater Island. Yes, the ship and beach are all fully skatable. Only in Tony Hawk. At the airport, heading immediately to the right and through this tiny tunnel, transports us outside where we can grind the blades of a helicopter, forcing it to take off. Who the hell is in that helicopter? Sticking with the airport, one of our career mode goals is to stop the pickpockets. They're dressed in all black and they're apparently thieves. This was a late change as... oh boy. Originally, these guys were terrorists. 9/11 occurred about a month before Tony Hawk 3 launched, and when I say this was a last-second update, I mean it. Yikes. In Canada, this guy hidden near the very back of the stage has a never-ending stream of piss, and if you stand there long enough, he remarks about how it must be some sort of world record. This is all well and good, but it's time to talk about Suburbia, where there's a weird, scary house at the end of the block. This is like the castle in Edward Scissorhands, you know? The door opens by itself, and there are red eyes shining from the darkness. Entering this door spits us into the black and empty void before dropping us back into reality. And if that wasn't weird enough, there's a guy on the side of the house who tells us to bring him his key. We find an axe by the construction site, and this is his key. He chops the walls down and rushes inside. The backyard flashes back and forth between several different worlds, and if you can get upstairs, there's some poltergeist shit going on up here. The Thin Man, to me, is the creepiest thing about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. There's no question about it. Releasing the day before Halloween, that's October 30th, 2001, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 faced the challenge of living up to the two greatest skateboarding video games ever made. Rather than get cute and pose a handful of could it live up to the hype questions, we'll just get to it. THPS 3 smashed any and all expectations. Again, 3 games into the series, critics were still raving. Fans of the franchise showed their support to the tune of over 2.1 million copies being sold at retail. Online play was possible for the first time, and though I never experienced it myself, I hear it was pretty damn cool. That must have been incredible back in 2001. Wow. To this very day, Metacritic lists Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 as one of the highest rated video games ever made. I think it's safe to say that this one has absolutely stood the test of time. Welcome to my world? Man, this is a world I don't mind living in. Oh, there it is, Dan Dance. Thank you for joining me for the History of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Part 3. Welcome to my world. I should let you know right now, come back next week at this exact time. I mean, you don't want to miss the History of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Part 4, The New Age of Extreme, do you? Until next time, I love ya, and I will see you soon.